And what's up, everybody? Welcome to Friday night. First and last hit.
Podcast. Show. Apologize.
This is
Sorry.
the show.
Yes. Yep. I said podcast at first. Corrected myself.
This is the show. This is not the podcast.
Rookie mistake.
Anyways, I'm your host, Mac Dubs.
And I am your other host, Andy Hoiber. What are you drinking on the menu tonight, huh?
I've got a mix of things. I've got cookout Coke, water.
Okay. So I want to ask you about this cookout Coke here. Is this like
It is a
what's the
it's
difference?
like a fast food restaurant.
Oh, okay. So cookout.
I mean, different places you can go in and sit down and eat, but it's mostly like a drive-through, or you walk up to the window and order.
But what does the cookout Coke differ from regular Coke?
Oh, it's just the name of the
Oh,
place.
okay. I thought you were drinking a Coke that you just said cookout Coke.
But check this out though. They have 36 creamy premium milkshakes. 36 flavors.
You know what? Tonight is a very special show, so I think I'll behave
And
myself. John 3:16.
yeah,
You know what Austin 3:16 said, right?
and I just whipped your butt. All right, guys. So tonight's guest is
Very special one.
yes. He goes. Yeah. So, anyways, while we're waiting for our guest, his name is Terry Tucker. Um, Former NC D1 basketball player, former high school basketball coach, cancer warrior.
Former SWAT hostage negotiator.
Undercover narcotics investigator. A motivational speaker. And a book author. So, as we're waiting on him,
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I was just shooting him an email asking if he had received the link. So,
hopefully he has, and we can get the show on the road here.
for the love of God, I hope so. Be about the one time we actually are able to start and have everything go smoothly on time.
Hey, dude, we're actually 10 minutes ahead of time.
Right? Oh, hey, here we are. All
Here we
right.
go. Oh, come on. Yeah. All right, everyone. Welcome to the show. Terry Tucker. Terry, how are you doing tonight?
Gentlemen, I am doing great, thank you. How about yourselves?
I
So wait
can't
a minute.
complain. Can't complain. I live in North Carolina, and I can't tell if it's going to be hot or cold one day. One day I'm
I
in
went to college in
shorts.
South Carolina, so I hear you.
One day
Neighbor.
I'm in shorts, and one day I'm in a hoodie and sweatpants.
I hear you.
So you said you reside in South Carolina now?
I reside in Denver now.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Colorado. Okay.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. I hope
Beautiful.
you a Denver Broncos fan.
No, I grew up in Chicago, so I'm a Bears fan. And I know that's not really nice,
Hey, that's okay. I'm a Jets fan, so
I hear you. Yeah, you got to go with the home team. You can't be a fair weather fan. So,
yeah.
but yeah, Denver's been interesting in terms of football. They've got, you know, now with what's going on with Russell Wilson, and I've been here since Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl and all that stuff.
Um,
So
I'm a Tampa Bay guy. I've been a Tampa Bay fan since 2005. So, not too thrilled that we have Baker Mayfield, but what are you going to do?
yeah,
I mean, through our whole season, we've went through 5 quarterbacks, and I gave up mid-season. So,
it's always next year, right?
Yeah.
well, I'm hoping there's a next year for us. But it
You
looks
think
like
Rodgers will be back?
I hope so. I mean, he hasn't played none this season, and the first snap of the game, all the hype just goes down the drain. It's like, man, I really wanted to see what he could have done with the team. But
I'm actually looking more forward to, because I believe January 1st, Michigan is be facing Alabama, and I'm a diehard Michigan fan. I'm born and raised in Michigan, so I am a Michigan fan through and through. I mean, so much so that my daughter, who was just born on August 1st of this year, the poor girl doesn't understand what's going on other than her dad is dancing around the house for an hour straight, hyped up on Red Bull because we shut out Michigan State 49-0, and then went on to win the Big Ten championship in a shutout there too. So
yeah. Speaking of sports, I've seen you played a little basketball yourself in college.
I did. I went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, and got to play. So my senior year, I'll tell you how old I am. My senior year, 1982. It was Michael Jordan's freshman year at North Carolina,
Oh wow!
and
Mike, he's
he's
much older than you are.
I
yeah
was
he's
born
not.
in '89.
Who was Jordan?
No, I'm saying I was
Oh,
born in
you were born in
'89.
'89.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm old. I mean, I could be your guys' fathers and stuff. So I mean, but they used to have what was called the North-South doubleheader, and they
Mhm.
took two teams from North Carolina, which were North Carolina and North Carolina State, and two teams from South Carolina, which were the Citadel and Furman, and we played in the Charlotte Coliseum. And since the Citadel and Furman are in the same conference, and North Carolina State are in the same conference, it was a round robin. So Friday night we played North Carolina, Jordan, 1982. That's the year North Carolina went on to win the national championship. And then the following night, Saturday night, we played against Jim Valvano and North Carolina State, who the following year, 1983, they won the national championship. So in the course of one weekend, I was lucky enough to play against two national championship teams. But I'll give you a funny story. So fast forward 20 years. Michael Jordan's playing for the Bulls. My youngest brother is coaching Jordan's two sons.
Oh
And he
wow!
said,
Really?
yeah, one day we're at practice, Loyola Academy in Chicago. One day we're at practice, it's toward the end of practice, and I'm teaching the players a drill, and I look up, and none of the players are paying any attention to me. So I look to where the players are looking, and they're looking towards the door. And Jordan had come into the gym as a dad to pick his kids up after practice and to take them home. And my brother looked at him and said, "Hey, Michael, you're a little bit of a distraction. Would you mind waiting out in the hall until practice was over?" And Jordan and his wife were incredibly gracious people. And he said, "Sure, coach, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'll wait in the hall till practice is over." And my brother thought later, "Gee, I'm probably the only coach in the history of basketball that ever kicked Michael Jordan out of practice."
Now that's a story to tell right there. I would have told. too many people. Hey, man, you know, I kicked Michael Jordan out of my gym. Everyone would just look at you like,
Well,
really?
it's funny because the parents used to take turns hosting the pregame meals, and the Jordans did the same thing. So the Jordans would open up their compound, the big gates and all that stuff, and they would
Hmm.
have a catered meal in the indoor basketball court that they had at their house, and all the parents and all the players were invited. So my brother's also been to Michael Jordan's house, which is I think to this
Nice.
day still incredible.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, I've only seen him at the Charlotte Hornets arena,
Right.
just walking around.
I love how celebrities and athletes they are. Some of them can be. I love it when they are so nice and humble, and then you get ones that are just arrogant and all about themselves. I mean, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I've done wrestling, mixed martial arts, and so there's a legendary family um, not too far from me down in Broadheadsville. I moved to Pennsylvania, and so down there I was working with Alpha Junior. He does his own promotion there, and I've met a lot of wrestlers come in and out of there, working his show and stuff. Most of them very humble, very kind and loving people. I mean, I ran into a few. It's just like if you're not talking about them and putting them up on a pedestal, they don't want to be bothered with you. It's just like I ain't got time for that. So to hear that Jordan, who is an icon and a legend, not just for his work in basketball, but I mean he's done so many things. He's done baseball, golf. I mean, and then plus how he is, outside of all that, and he remains that same person. You know, it's so nice to hear.
You know, another guy. Speaking of Jordan, another guy that's like really humble and motivates the kids is Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Um, he's, I mean, he don't the shoes that he doesn't sell. He donates them to charity, and um, I mean, you can just walk right into Walmart and buy a pair of his shoes. I mean, any other basketball player, you're paying 150, $200 for a sneaker, and you can walk anywhere to any store and you can buy a pair of Shaq sneakers for
I
20,
mean,
25 bucks.
into him though. His feet are like what size 18 Z's or something. Like for the love of God, dude's foot is bigger than my whole body.
Yeah,
It's
but I mean, what those two guys have in common was their parents. And Jordan's parents and Shaq's parents. They gave them discipline, they gave them values, they gave them love, they gave them all the things that we all need to be successful in lives. It all starts in the family, and if you don't have a good family, you can understand why some of those, what you were talking about, wrestlers and stuff like that. Hey, it's all about me. No, it's not. But if you didn't have somebody to love you and teach you when you were younger, you can understand why those people end up the way that they do.
yeah.
So are
So
you a
you,
North Carolina or a Duke fan?
oh, I'll say I'm not a North Carolina fan. I'm a Duke fan. I've been a Duke fan since '91 and '92.
So
Uh,
to kind of give you a backstory on him, there have been give you an example. There have been times where I've been on the phone with this man during a Duke game, whether no matter what sport it is, and I mean he will literally either drop the phone or just start screaming in a tangent if they're losing by like 3 points. It's like, dude, it's only like the first quarter. 10 minutes in, you know what I mean? Like there's still a whole game yet, and you're screaming at the television that they're losing by three.
Look, it's the coach in me. Okay, I've been coaching football for about 5 seasons now, so about this will be my fourth year now. It's just the coach in me, I mean, I try to, sometimes you got to be loud out there for
Oh yeah.
to get it through your players' heads. But um,
Well, I
man,
was
it
lucky
is
enough to be recruited by Coach K when he was at Army, when he was just starting out in his career, when he was at West Point. And so I have letters from him and all that.
really.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
I yeah. The only thing I got from Coach K was a
Rejection letter.
no. I got an autograph from him for my dad because my dad's a huge Duke fan as well. Um, but I did get to see him at Cameron Indoor Stadium. It was his last season, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, that was an emotional season.
oh yeah.
Um, but I've seen that you were a basketball coach as well.
High school, yeah.
High school.
I never got on to the next level, but I just love. I mean, you know, as a coach, you have an impact on kids. You make a difference.
How long were you a high school coach?
4 years.
4 years. Now going back to you playing basketball and college, did you play all 4 years or?
Yeah, played all 4 years. Got a scholarship. Lettered all 4 years. Captained the team my senior year.
Very nice. Very nice.
The one thing I would like to ask is we talked, kind of touched on motivation here, and with you being a motivational speaker, what inspired you to go out there and be a motivational speaker and to help others?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really started 11 and a half years ago. I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, a rare form of melanoma that appeared on the bottom of my left foot. And it was during when I was coaching basketball. And initially, I didn't think much of it because, as you guys know, you're on your feet a lot as a coach. And so I didn't really do anything with it for a couple weeks. And when the wound didn't heal, I went to see a foot doctor, a podiatrist friend of mine, and he took an X-ray and he said, "Terry, you have a cyst in there, and I can cut it out." He did. Showed it to me, a little gelatin sac, some white fat in it. He said, "It looks fine, looks benign, but I'll send it off to pathology anyway." And then 2 weeks later, I get a call from him. And as I said, he was a friend of mine. And the more difficulty he was having explaining to me what was going on, the more frightened I was becoming until finally he laid it out for me. He said, "Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I have never seen the form of cancer that you have. You have this incredibly rare form of melanoma." And most people think of melanoma as too much exposure to the sun and it affects the melon, the pigment in our skin. Mine has nothing to do with sun exposure. It's this incredibly rare form. And so I ended up being treated at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Texas. And I was told, basically, if you get a miracle, you'll live for 5 years. More than likely, you'll be dead in 2 years because we have nothing to treat
Wow.
it other than
Wow.
surgery. So I was like, well, you gave me a death sentence. Maybe I can turn it into a life sentence. Um, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to shorten it up. They put me on a drug that I took a weekly injection of that was not going to do anything to the cancer. They were just trying to buy me more time for
Yeah.
additional therapies to become available. That drug gave me bad flu symptoms, very severe flu symptoms every week. And I took that weekly injection for 5 years. So imagine having a bad case of the flu every week for 5 years. And as I said, that wasn't a cure. That was just, we're trying to kick the can down the road.
Right.
Eventually, that medicine became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the intensive care unit with a body temperature of 108 degrees,
Whoa.
usually not compatible with being alive. Somehow I survived that, but I had to stop taking the drug. Cancer came back in the exact same spot on my foot, had my foot amputated in 2018, worked its way up my leg 2019, two more surgeries, and then in 2020, an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle area grew large enough that it broke my leg. It fractured my tibia.
Hmm.
And I ended up having to have my leg amputated above the knee, and I found out I have tumors in my lungs, which I still have, and I'm treated every 3 weeks. So that's sort of the backstory of people were suggesting you should tell your story. It would help people and things like that. So that started me actually to do a motivational speaking business. And I did that just as COVID hit. And like so many other businesses, I had to figure out a different way to deliver my message. And somebody reached out to me and said, "Would you like to be a guest on my podcast?" And I said, "Sure. What's a podcast?" I had no idea what a podcast was. And he told me, and I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I remember my first one, I was so nervous and I was so terrible. I had Post-it notes all around the camera, and he would ask me a question. I'd kind of lean in and read the Post-it note. It was horrible. But now I'm probably closing in on 700 podcasts later that I've done all
Nice.
over the world. And it's been a great experience. And it's what I do in my off weeks of treatment. And now that things are opening up after COVID, people are having more in person and virtual events. I'm doing more speaking now, but every 3 weeks I'm at the hospital for an entire week to be treated for the tumors I have in my lungs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm nowhere near you, but a couple of months ago, I had started a new job and my legs started hurting, and I was like, I'm not going into work today. I'm gonna call my boss and let him know, hey, I'm at the emergency room. And I went and got an ultrasound done on my leg. Uh, so they were saying that I had a massive blood clot from the bottom of my calf all the way up to about the middle of my thigh. And they
Wow.
said that it was so massive. I've had it for about 3 to 4 years, and I didn't know. And so, yeah, it's crazy. Now I'm taking medication for it, and I have to take that twice a day. And um, ended up having a small blood clot on my lung as well. And so, yeah, it's a journey. But
Are you taking Eliquis?
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I ended up having a blood clot in my lung too because of the cancer treatment, and they put me on Eliquis as well.
yeah.
I
And
mean,
I'll go ahead.
sorry about that, Mac. So, but just hearing all this, I mean, I've never went through anything, um, like 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 that. It was similar to you guys, but I mean, I've went through some hardships myself. Um, I mean, but my question is, and this is going to kind of, and this might even help me a bit too, is with everything you've been through, what keeps you motivated to get up with positivity and just go through each day?
I think a couple things. What I call my 3 F's, which are faith, family, and friends. And I think it's also what I learned by playing team sports. I started playing basketball when I was 9 years old and played all the way up until I graduated from college when I was 21. And I think what team sports taught me, and I think it can be whatever team you're on, it doesn't have to be sports. We're all
Yeah,
part of different teams, is the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself. You realize on a team that if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but you let your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, your parents down, etc. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life. And so I'm on this clinical trial drug. I've been on it for the last 3 years now for these tumors in my lungs. It's keeping them stable, but it's probably not going to save my life. And my nurses are constantly asking me, why do you come here every 3 weeks? Why do you go through this? And what I like to say is it's certainly helping me. So, I mean, there's certainly an altruistic part of it, but I always look at it like maybe based on the data the doctors are gleaning from my blood tests and my scans, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there could be somebody out there that their life gets saved based on all the data that they're accumulating. And to me, that's being part of something that's bigger than yourself. So I don't look at this as it's all about me. I try to look at it as how can I make a difference? How can I bring positivity, motivation, love, goodness back into the world with whatever time that I have left? Like I said, I was given, 2 years to live back in 2012. And when I had my leg amputated and found out I had these tumors in my lungs, I went with my wife to the mortuary and to the cemetery and to the church, and I planned my funeral. And because I do podcasts like this and radio shows and give talks in person, I actually got some brushback from people who commented that somehow planning my funeral was in some way defeatist. And I had to remind these people that the last time I checked, we're all going to die. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's working on a cure for life right now. Every one of us is going to die, but
Yeah.
not every one of us is really going to live.
So a few things. I mean, in that, I wish people would realize that the world we live in nowadays, and I've recently got into watching The Blacklist, James Spader, and his character Red Reddington had made a quote. Um, it was an episode where the antagonist, or the villain there, was trying to make it so humans could live forever, and Red Reddington and I'm always jotting down his quotes, and he says humans as a species don't deserve to live forever. And it's just like those small little quotes that kind of sit back and make you wonder and ponder these types of things. And I'm so glad that I was able to hear what motivates you, keeps you going, because that's going to help me going forward too. I lost my son last year due
I'm
to
sorry.
SIDS. Um, I appreciate it. Due to SIDS, he was only a day shy of 3 months. So, and just even before thinking about that, just having you on here, hearing your story, it kind of chokes me up a little bit because you stay so positive. You get up in the mornings and you're out there to motivate others to keep going and to help them, and you're not in it for yourself. You're not doing it for the notoriety or anything. You're doing it because you have a genuine heart and you're helping others. So I mean, just to kind of sit back and think, wow, I mean, maybe I can be kind and help somebody else. And you're definitely a true inspiration in that aspect.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm always reminded of the story. You guys are old enough to remember Mr. Rogers, right? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Fred
Oh
Rogers.
yeah.
Excuse me. So in 2003, when Fred Rogers died, his family was going through his effects, and they found his wallet. And inside his wallet was a scrap piece of paper on which Mr. Rogers had written 4 simple words. And those words were life is for service. And I think if you kind of keep that in mind, that it's not about you, it's not about, I think so many of us seem to think that we're born empty. And that once we get out of school and we get into life, whatever that looks like for you, whether you go to college or trade school or you have a job, whatever that looks like for you, that then your job is supposed to be to fill yourself up. I got to get a good job, make a lot of money, drive the nicest car, have the best family, have the latest gear, iPhones, that kind of stuff. And what I've come to understand is we're not born empty. We're all born full with everything we need to be successful in our lives already inside of us. We just need to find that part of us, pull it out, and use it for our benefit. So our job should not be to fill ourselves up. Our job should be to empty ourselves out, certainly for the betterment of ourselves, but also for the betterment of our family, of our friends, of our communities, and things like that. And if you look at life that way, it's not what I get, it's what I give, then you have a whole different attitude change that makes you motivated, that makes you disciplined, that makes you implement good habits because that's what you feel your purpose in life is.
I was just thinking about what Andrew was just saying, and all the motivational speaking and stuff. I wish we could have met about 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
Me and Andrew were having a conversation, um, and it was like, you know what, we need to do a podcast like tonight. He was like, "What's the reason?" And I'm like, "I'll tell you when we get on." And so, there's been a lot of violence and stuff going on around the schools and stuff, and there was a major stabbing here in North Carolina. About the school is about 15 minutes away from where we live, and I didn't know I didn't know the kids or anything or the parents or anything, but it just kind of hit hard, and I just think that if kids found something to do besides joining a gang or selling drugs or something like that, I think each kid has got a special talent. Um, they're unique in their own way, and it's just yeah, it's just really touching. And
I mean,
I think
we touched on it earlier. We're talking about Michael Jordan and people who just how they're raised with their parents. I mean, my wife and I, we went to a Walmart, and I remember calling Mac right afterwards, and I was just done with it. We're walking out of Walmart, and I hear this little kid, and f you, and not really paying attention. I said to my wife, I said, "Is he saying it to you?" And she said, "No, look." I look over. Here, this little kid can't be, no younger than 7, maybe 8, screaming "F you" and giving his mother, the double bird and just hitting her and this and that. Well, now the dad not doing anything. The mom, I don't even know what's going on with her, and I'm just like, I tell you, I said, and I told my wife, I said, our kid would never act like that. He walked out of Walmart, and this kid is still going. And his older brother, tried to stop him. To the dad's reply of, "Knock it off. You're not the parent." It's like, well, I mean, clearly neither are you because you ain't doing nothing. But
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. It's not my place. I mean, now if it was one of the parents beating on the kid or something, then yeah, I might step in or something. But I'm not going to go in there and discipline somebody else's kid if it's not my place. And I mean, but I remember, like, even back in my day, my great grandmother, God rest her soul, she used to have a paddle like this, and I mean, with the holes drilled in there. And I mean, even if you back talked her, you know what I mean? Like I remember walking in the room, and if I just looked at that, my head would just shy away. I mean, because I knew better. I mean, in my sisters who are a little older than I am, I mean, they remember a time where my same grandmother, my oldest sister got out of line. My grandmother would tell her, go pick a switch out from the tree, and if she brought back, I think it was like the thickest one, go out there, and now you have to pick the thinnest one that's going to hurt the most, and lay across the bed, pull your pants down, and they just switch for it. And it's just like we live in a time now where it's okay. I'm going to have a kid, and then put a tablet in front of their face, or a phone. It's just like, why are you having kids if you're just going to entertain them with screen time? Like, spend time with them, do something with them, and it's it's a shame. I wish we could go back to, like, even the '90s. Um, but I also believe that there's still good people out there like us three who can still bring that old school mentality, at least to our kids, and at least have it still that slimmer of old school in today's era, today's age.
I agree with you. One of the jobs I had, I spent 10 years as a police officer and worked the night shift. And I remember this was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Cincinnati had a curfew. And, depending on your age, you had to be in at a certain time. And, it would be a Wednesday night in the middle of October. So, school's going on. And we'd pick up a 13-year-old kid at 3 o'clock in the morning. And our procedure was to take them home and cite their parents. Well, you would take them home and you would find out that they're living with their 75-year-old grandmother because dad's in jail and mom's a crackhead. And, I've got to cite a 75-year-old grandmother who I know is doing the best she can given, what she's able to do. But darn well she's in bed at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and that kid's got no supervision after that, and he's sneaking out and doing all kinds of things. And I can't tell you how many times my partner and I would look at each other as we left. It would be like, that kid doesn't stand a chance. That's the kid's got nothing. And I think from a parent point of view, I heard a statistic a couple weeks ago that I'm still thinking about today. It said that 80% of the time that you will spend with your children will occur by the time they're 18 years old. And 90% of the time you spend with your children will occur by the time they're 21 years old. So by the time your kids are 21 years old, you will have spent 90% of all the time you will spend with them. You only spend 10% of them for the rest of your life. And that was like, I wanted to be in my daughter. My wife and I have one daughter, and I wanted to be in her life. I mean, she's a captain in the Space Force. She went to the Air Force Academy.
That's awesome.
And graduated. And unfortunately, she got my height, so she played basketball there as well. But, I wanted to be in my kid's life. And there were nights, honestly, where I would be at her school recital or a play or something like that. And like I said, I worked the night shift. So I'd be going to work on 4 hours of sleep, carrying a gun, making the decisions that we had to make. But I always put my family first because they were the thing that grounded me. That was what was important. Like I said, faith, family, and friends, that was what was important in my life.
You should get a T-shirt with that made.
Faith, family, and friends?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be awesome. I mean, but that's why I cherished every minute of my son playing football for me. 5 seasons, and this past season hit hard. It was his last season with me, and it was a good one. We ended up going 12-0 and winning the district title, and went out with a bang.
Good for you! Congratulations.
Thanks. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride as a football coach. Like I said, I've done it 5 seasons, and in 5 seasons we've won 3 district titles, so it's been pretty fun.
What's the hardest thing about being a coach?
Getting the kids to listen. And so in my first season of coaching, how football teams, they have their rivals, and so my first season, we had our rivals, and the kids wanted to fight at the games, and after the games they would try and fight each other, and we weren't having that. And then the second season, we actually had to join players, and at first they didn't like each other. Kids wasn't coming to practice, so we nipped that in the bud, and these kids now been playing together for 5 seasons, and they're more than just friends now. They became brothers, and so it's
like the other way around. Kids are doing great and behaving themselves, and then you got us on the on the coaching staff. They're fighting with the referees who try to screw us out of the games, and you got Mac over there yelling and fighting with the referee. It's like you're going to get a citation, you're going to get fined. And it's like, I don't care, he needs to stop screwing us over and this and that. They're just kids, man. Like, it's like,
Yeah, it's like in our so in the district championship game, they had four referees on the field. So two for the backfield and two for up front. And there was a lot of calls that the backfield were missing, and there was a lot of calls that the front field were missing, and then the front field was watching the backfield, and the backfield was watching the front field, and we got a call that almost costed us the game. And um, as a coach, I'm pretty sure there were times where you questioned the referee, and it was just one of those things. But I understand that you're a referee and you have to do your job, but if you're just refing just to be here, then don't be here. But if you want to make it a fair game, cool. I will give you the utmost respect.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
I always felt it was the parents. I used to tell them I'd have a parents meeting, and I'd always tell them, I'm like, look, because none of my parents ever played basketball. I mean, maybe in the driveway, but never played in high school or college, or probably even in grade school. And I used to tell them, hey, if you don't come to my work and tell me how to do my job, I won't come to your work and tell you how to be a garbage man or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it is. And I mean, we got a big kick out of it, but at the same time, I was trying to make a point. It's like don't try. If I remember one time I called the timeout. I designed a play. The kids went out there, and one of the dads was in the stands, called his kid over to the stands, and was telling his kid what to do. And I'm like, don't do that. I've just called a play. Don't mess this up for us.
yeah,
But
it's like, I'm sorry, sir. Do you want to come down here and coach for me? Like,
yeah,
I
right.
mean, we'll switch spots because, I mean, I would love to sit back and watch you do my job for me.
Exactly. And I used to tell the parents, if you want to come to practice, my practices are open. You can come anytime you want and watch your kid. But I don't want to have a discussion with you about playing time until your kid has come to me first and say, hey, coach, I think I should be playing over so and so. If they come that and they're not happy with my answer and you want to talk to me, that's fine. But I'm not talking to you until your kid comes and talks to me, because I think that's important. It's team sports teaches you so much. It teaches you how to win. It teaches you how to lose. It teaches you how to handle disappointment. It teaches you how to be a teammate. It teaches you how to be coachable. It teaches you all these great things. And then the parents don't get that. It's like, let me coach. Let me be hard on your kid, because when you're dead and gone, life is not going to say, oh, poor Johnny, that's too bad that happened to you. It's like, life is hard. We need to get these kids ready for life. I could care less what the score is. Nobody's going to remember some high school basketball game. What are we teaching these kids? And it's more than, you know, X's and O's. It's about how to be a better human being.
Well, I think it comes down to like, and I'm gonna bring in the famous Rocky quote from Rocky Six. That, I mean, I am still convinced to this day that it needs to be in gospel scripture, because everybody has this misinterpretation about life where it's all like fine and dandy and life is what you make it, and it's like, no. And I mean, I can't really quote it word for word, but I'll paraphrase it. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean, it's cruel, nasty place. It's gonna beat you to your knees. It's gonna keep you there permanently if you let it. You know, and it's just like, I mean, life is beating me down to the point where I've almost gotten down. But it's just, it's about the type of person you are. It's, you know life experience is going to make you who you are. Plus, how you're raised. I mean, growing up, I never had the best parenting. My dad just for fun, used to beat the hell out of me as a kid. And it's just like, yeah, that's cool. Now I know that I need to break a cycle. So I don't. I want better for my kids. But you are a former, was it FBI or SWAT, hostage negotiator, and we seem to be on the topic of parenting and kids like that and things like that. So my question is have you ever had to negotiate a hostage situation when it's been a parent kidnapping their own kid, whether nasty divorce or something like that? Have you ever ran into those personal type of situations, or has it always been?
Not that particular, you know, we ran into some kind of interesting things. We worked with a psychologist, we trained with a psychologist, and we would do scenarios, and then where we learned it was in the debrief. And you might have negotiated, and the psychologist might have said to you, "Did you ever think that person might have been schizophrenic and off their medicine?" No, that never occurred to me. So I mean, that's kind of how we learn. And I remember one time we were negotiating with a 15-year-old kid who'd barricaded himself in a house with a gun, and he was just firing out the window. And we had done everything we knew how to do. And so I remember we said, "Hey, we'll call you back." And so we hung up and we got together, kind of like a huddle, in football. We all got together and we're like, "What do you think?" And we're putting our heads together. And finally somebody said, "Hey, this kid's 15 years old. He's a kid. Let's scare him." And so we had the tactical team break a window and throw in a flashbang device. It sort of explodes. I mean, it generates heat. I mean, it'll catch something on fire, if it lands on a couch or something like that. But it just basically makes a loud bang and a very bright light. And we did that. And within 15 minutes, the kid was out. So, I mean, there's things like that. I mean, I did this is kind of a funny one. You both might appreciate this. I was working the particular night. So I was in a marked car in uniform, and we carried pagers at the time. Pager went off. I went to the scene. I get there pretty quickly because I'm in a marked car, and talk to the uniform guys. I'm like, "What's the deal?" "He's drunk. He's got a gun. He barricaded himself in the house, and he's got his wife as a hostage." I'm like, "Okay, you have him on the phone?" "Yes, we do. Let me talk to him." So we're talking, and I just had a feeling. It's usually hours down the road before you start talking about solutions coming out and things like that. But I just had a hunch with this guy. And so I said to him, "What would it take for you to come out?" And there was like this long pause on the end of the phone. And he said, "Give me a beer." I said, "If I gave you a beer, do I have your word you would let your wife go and you would come out peacefully?" He said, "Do I have your word I could drink it?" I said, "Yeah, you have my word you could drink it, but do I have your word you'd let your wife go and you'd come out?" He said, "Yeah." So I gave $5 to one of the uniform guys. I said, "Get down to the store and buy a beer." And the tactical team put it on the front porch. And I called them back and I said, "Your beer's on the front porch, but you don't get it until your wife comes out and you come out with the gun, no gun, and your hands up." He hit me again with, "Do I have your word that I could drink it?" I said, "You have my word that I will let you drink the beer." All of a sudden, the front door flies open. Here comes his wife. Here he comes with his hands up. We handcuff him, let him drink his beer, and off to jail he went.
That is an awesome story.
Uh,
It's like, "Hey, man, just give me a beer and I'll let you take me in."
Yeah, pretty much. Like, hey, for $5, if we can solve this peacefully and nobody gets hurt, I'll spend $5 to get you out.
but I think the real question comes down to is how did it get so bad that you're calling in the SWAT over a beer, that you're taking your wife hostage and dealing with the SWAT team over a beer? Like, I just.
Well, you guys know. I mean, when drugs or alcohol are involved, people make bad decisions. And the way we used to describe what we did is, if you think about, we all grew up, going to the park and playing on, the seesaw or the teeter-totter, when we were growing up. And the way we describe what we do is, when we first start negotiating with you, your rational brain is way down on the ground and your emotional brain is way up in the air.
Right.
And over time, asking you open-ended questions, how and what questions. We stayed away from why questions because they sound accusatory, and there are a lot of different strategies. Over time, that teeter-totter kind of comes to equilibrium. And then over more time, more talking, more developing trust, more empathy, hopefully their rational brain is up in the air and their emotional brain is down on the ground, because we all make better decisions with our rational brain. But a lot of that is you got to let the drugs wear off. You got to let the alcohol wear off. And you get to a point. I mean, I would negotiate with this one guy. This is kind of a funny story too, but it's a little bit more tragic. This was a guy who decided he wanted to end his life. And so probably 7, 8 o'clock at night, he slits his wrist. Well, that doesn't work. And for some reason, he thought killing himself would happen if he turned the gas on his oven and stuck his head in the oven. Well, that didn't work either. They're not the brightest people that we deal with sometimes. And then he called a relative, and the relative was smart enough to call the police. And so we're, his house is surrounded by the police. I'm talking to him on the phone. Now it's probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning now, and he's got a gun. And we're talking, and he said, Terry, I'm tired. I just want to come out. I said, yeah, do that. I said, put the gun down. Come on out. I said, I'll come down to the scene. We'll talk face to face. We'll talk man to man. And he was a real kind of macho guy. And, killing himself was not something he was sitting real well. And so he's like, okay. I said, put the gun down, but take the phone with you. And then I told him what was going to happen when he goes outside. About 30 seconds later, he ended up hanging up the phone, which is not uncommon. We're conditioned to hang up the phone after a call is done. But about 30 seconds later, one of the tactical officers comes on the radio and says, I heard a gunshot. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. You shot yourself. He did. Shot himself in the head, but he shot himself at such an angle that the bullet went in right here at his temple, went around his scalp, and out the other side.
What?
Never got to his brain, never penetrated his skull. And, we always talk about when it's your time, it's your time. Well, the opposite.
Obviously, it wasn't his time.
And the fact that it went like a U shape, like that's
he shot himself at such an angle that it didn't go in. It was more along the side, and it just went around his scalp and came out the other temple.
Wow.
Yeah, wasn't his time.
That's wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's just God telling you, hey, dude, I'm going to let you shoot yourself, but I'm not going to let you go today.
Yeah. It was a head wound, so it was incredibly bloody.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of seriousness, it wasn't really that serious.
I mean, it's just like I heard a story about some guy. He was shot 9 times and still living today. And somebody went to go shoot him in the head, had him pinned down. If it wasn't for somebody yelling, he had the gun right here to his head, and somehow the bullet ricocheted and went down and went through his jaw and out the other side.
This wouldn't happen to be the same guy that got shot in the face like 9 times, would it? I think his name was like Curtis Jackson or something. Is that who you're talking about?
No. Different scenario. But speaking of like working with the police and SWAT, so you were also an undercover narcotics investigator. Now,
funny, isn't it? You can't see me, but I'm 6'8" tall. So being undercover was.
I mean, hey, I have that. I mean, if the police ask me to go undercover for them, I mean, I'm about 6'5", 6'5 and a half, 6'6". I'm right there with you, man. So, well, how was
stand out? But
yeah,
sorry, Matt.
But how was that situation being an undercover narcotics investigator?
Dangerous. It was. I was.
Was that more dangerous than being the negotiator for the SWAT team?
Yeah, I mean, when you're negotiating, I mean, you could be 2 blocks away from the guy talking on the phone. You could be behind a door, and the tactical team will put up what's called ballistic blankets on the wall. so that if somebody shoots through the wall, the blanket will stop the bullet. So, I mean, we had armored cars. I mean, I never felt unsafe when I was a negotiator. I felt unsafe a lot when I was in the drug unit. I got shot at once.
Now,
How the guy missed me, I have no idea. He
yeah.
was across the street, one curb to one curb on like a residential street. He just they don't usually bad guys don't have good tactics when it comes to shooting, so he missed.
Now
But I
was
mean
this?
that I would recover in search warrants. I mean, M16s, AK-47s,
Wow.
Thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in cash, all kinds of dope. I mean, that industry, and it is illicit drugs as an industry, is motivated by greed. And it's funny when you talk to these young dope dealers that are in their 20s, you ask them, what are your goals, what do you want to do with your life? And their answer is, look, I'm going to be dead by the time I'm 30. Another drug dealer is going to shoot me and kill me and take over my territory. So it's basically like I'm living large, I'm living fast, and I've got the car, the gold teeth, all the chains, all the cash. I mean, we stopped one guy in a car. He had $80,000 in cash, and we looked at him like, "Are you nuts?" He's like, "What do you mean, am I nuts? Everybody knows I'm a dope dealer, and everybody knows where I live. So they just wait till I leave, then they break into my house and try to steal my money. So wherever I go, my money goes with me." And we ended up confiscating that money because it was proceeds of drug money, and it gets forfeited and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I've had plenty of my partner, the unit I worked in, several people had guns pulled on them. It's an incredibly dangerous industry.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I've encountered like drugs and stuff because I used to work for a company that cleaned out apartments and houses. Like the government would call in, or like an apartment complex or anywhere, they would just call in and be like, "Hey guys, we need you to come clean this before, uh, the police come out here and uh, do finger searches and stuff like that." Um, but yeah, it was pretty cool um, working for that junk removal company because I mean I got to see some crazy stuff inside some apartments. There was one apartment here in Durham, North Carolina. Um, we did, and the police had came and opened the door, and we literally had to wear mask and hazard suits because it was somebody was using it as a drug house,
Hmm.
and there was crack, cocaine, heroin, and you could see like on the wall where they were like cooking, and the smoke was hitting the wall, and it was nuts.
Yeah,
And
my very first search warrant, I got 127 grams of crack,
Oh,
5 guns, and $25,000 in cash.
hmm.
That was my first search warrant,
wow.
and I did a bunch over my career.
I mean,
Now, how long were you undercover for?
3.5 years. I ended up getting promoted to sergeant, and so I had to leave the drug unit and go back to patrol.
so 3.5 years at 6 feet and 8 inches tall. I mean, you're gonna stand out. I mean, how were you able to play it so cool without tipping somebody off, or I mean, being so tall and just, I mean, you got to be able to be extra cautious, I guess. I mean, I can I can only imagine your average dope dealer or whoever you're dealing with is I mean, you're going to be the first person they look at like, okay, this guy's 6'8". Immediately. I mean, if it were me, my suspicions is immediately going to go to you. How were you able to play it so cool and not spark any? any types of questions from those that you were undercover for?
I mean, part of it is you got to play a role. I remember one time I was working the night shift, and my old partner, she was working the day shift. We were both in the drug unit, and I came in and she called me and she said, "Hey, my CI, my informant, is telling me that there are these four kids from Dayton, Ohio, which is about 45 minutes north of Cincinnati, that are coming down to Cincinnati. They want to party and they want to sell mushrooms. They've got a bunch of mushrooms they want to sell for $200, and then they want to use the money to go party, downtown at the bars. Will you buy from them?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "But what's the backstory? What's the cover story here? I mean, they don't know me. I don't know them. What's the deal?" And like, well, let's come up with something. So I literally, I posed as a professor of metallurgy from the University of Cincinnati. And the only thing I know about metal is you put it out in the rain and it rusts. That was the extent of my knowledge of metallurgy. But I met these kids in a park. I had a briefcase in the back seat, and I kind of looked like a professor and that. And one of the kids gets out of the car, comes in the car, shows me the mushrooms, and I reach in my pocket, give him the $200. He jumps out, gets back in his car. They start to drive away, and my team and a bunch of marked cars move in on him. And so they were guests of the Hamilton County Justice Center that night, and unfortunately did not get to party. But I'll give you probably the weirdest story that I ever heard. So where Cincinnati's located. It's on the Ohio River, and right across the river is Kentucky, northern Kentucky. And so one night we're working, and I get a call from a Kentucky state trooper. And the trooper's like, "Hey, I just arrested this guy for DUI drugs. He was high on mushrooms." He said, "I Mirandized him, gave him his Miranda warnings. You have the right to remain silent." He decided he wanted to talk, said he lived in Cincinnati, gave me his address, and said he had more mushrooms in his apartment. I'm like, "Well, as long as you're willing to testify that, if it goes to trial, that you Mirandized him, and that's enough for us to do a search warrant." So I did it, typed up a search warrant, woke a judge up in the middle of the night. "Will you sign this?" "Yes," signed the search warrant. We go into this guy's apartment. I kid you not, this guy slept in a cage. His mattress and his bedding were in a cage
What?
because his entire apartment was filled with constrictor snakes.
What?
Wow.
Everywhere you opened a drawer, he had a plant in the corner. There were snakes on the. I mean, we never did a search warrant so quickly in our lives. I mean, it was like, let's fricking find these mushrooms and get the hell out of here. I mean, it was like, absolutely not. We're not hanging around here. I don't want anybody getting hurt and stuff like that. I did a lot of search warrant stuff, so I would sit on places and I would watch. I would just do surveillance. 2 blocks away, binoculars. And I'd watch somebody go, pull up, go in for 30 seconds, come out. I'd follow them, get a uniformed car to stop them, talk my way into the car or the pockets. They'd have dope. Like, "Do you want to work your case off?" They would say yes. I would wire them up, send them back in, let them buy with money we had. That was enough for a search warrant. And then my SWAT buddies would kick the door in, usually the next night, and we'd search the house. And literally, when we tore everything apart. We tore the cabinets apart, the bedding apart. We totally destroyed the house looking for dope. So it was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, that snake part, man.
I know, it was gross. It was like, because you were always kind of, looking around like, is something going to drop on you? Is something going to, yeah. I mean, but can you imagine him? He sleeps in a cage because all these snakes are around and, are big enough that could probably choke him if they got.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering, was he the owner of these snakes, or?
Yeah, he lived by himself. He lived in this house or in this apartment. And I mean, once we told the landlord, because we ended up getting a key from the landlord instead of kicking the door in.
Yeah.
And, it's like, hey, this guy's probably got 50 snakes in his apartment. The landlord was like, well, he's going to be gone after he's going to start the eviction process.
So I wonder, Do you know how they got the snakes out of there?
Nope. Nope.
Wow.
I mean, I don't prefer snakes, but I tell you what, they are a delicacy in Oklahoma. When I was 10 years old, we went to Oklahoma to visit grandparents, and they had a rattlesnake roundup. And I mean, it was just like a whole festival. There was, this one guy got bit in the hand. He had to go get medical attention. Well, at the fair they have those food trucks there, and they would cook and sell rattlesnake. Being 10 years old and pretty much daredevil, I'd try anything. I tell you what, it's one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted. Now,
Tastes
I'll
like
be
chicken.
but you know what? Listen, that is such a cliche, but I kid you not, you wouldn't have been able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, between that and deer meat are my two favorite. Outside of the normal, beef, pork, stuff like that. It amazes me though, hearing like your story and the things that you've experienced. It amazes me on people's mindsets. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't find any logical reason to number one, sleep in a cage, period, let alone with 50 snakes in my house.
Yeah. The things that you see as a police officer are not things that people should see. I mean, the grossness, especially when we were in the drug unit. I mean, we would kick doors in where they were selling dope, and like the entire toilet would be literally filled to the brim with feces. There would be a
Oh
room
yeah.
with a mattress on the floor with used condoms all around the mattress because women, I don't have any money to pay for my drugs, but I'm withdrawing. I need the drugs. Well, we'll take it out and trade. You
Hmm.
have sex with me, and I'll do. I mean, the things people do for their fix, for their high, because I've never been addicted to anything, so I don't know what it's like, but I've seen it, and they'll do anything. They'll sell their soul. I swear to the devil, for a $20
Oh
rock
yeah.
of crack that
Yeah.
2 hours from now they'll need another one. So it's horrible to see what people do, but I mean, let's face it, drugs have been around since before Jesus' time, and they're going to be around long after all of us are gone.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just it's just a shame to watch. And I remember I did a podcast with two cadets from the Air Force Academy, and they asked me, are there treatment options for these people? I said, yeah, there's all kinds of treatment options. I said, but treatment usually doesn't work
They don't
until
want.
you hit rock bottom, and there's a very fine line between rock bottom and dead. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's
for sure.
that's pretty crazy to think how people what they would do, just for a quick fix.
yeah,
Man, I've seen people because when I used to work for this junk removal company, we used to go into these old neighborhoods, and the the women be standing on the side of the street trying to sell themselves for a quick buck, and um or for drugs or something like that, and you know it,
I mean, you go to like Vegas, and I've got a story. So, my wife and I got married in Vegas, and you don't think that stuff like this happens, as just a normal, everyday thing. But in Vegas, it's almost just like, we stayed at the Flamingo. That's our normal go-to place. And I mean, outside, there's just a line, and literally, past it, and it's like puff, puff, pass. Just outside, wide open, and it's just like, my goodness. So my wife was playing at the casino. 'Cause we were at the Flamingo. She was playing at the one next to it. I said, I'm gonna go back to the room, and I mean, before you even walk out of the casino, the smell of pot just smacks you in the face. And so I'm on my way back, and about halfway to the casino where across the street there where we were staying. These two women come up, and I mean, I'm not much to look at, So they come up to me and they start hitting on me like, hey, what brings you here? You want to go up to our room and this and that, and immediately, because I'm not a people person. For the most part, I like to be left alone. So immediately my guard goes up, and I'm like, no, I'm all right. I'm here on my wedding day. Said, I'm all right. Are you sure? Come up with us, and we'll give you a good time. Before you get married tomorrow and stuff like that. I'm like, no, I'll pass. Thanks for the offer, though. And I mean, I'll tell you what, the one girl is smoking, but I tell you, it's just like one of those, like, you get that feeling, and you just you get that cautious feeling like, okay, no, I know better. I'm just kindly reject. And I sat back and I thought to myself, had I been one of those guys, like, yeah, sure, I'll go collect a piece of ass. You get up there, it's like you don't know what you're walking. You easily walk into a room where there's a guy sitting in the chair. Then it's just like, oh, okay. It's one of those deals where you ain't got the money to pay up. You're gonna pay with your life. You know, it's like I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I was at work one day, a couple years back, just when I was working with the junk removal company, and me and my coworker, he's one of my best friends now, and if he was here, he'd tell you we had pulled into a gas station, and he was like, "I'm running in here. I'm gonna grab some Gatorade and some water. You want anything?" I was like, "Yeah, here." So I gave him a $10 bill. I was like, "Here, go get us a couple of Gatorades and water, uh, and I'll wait here." And this guy, and I just had my window cracked, and this guy, he just walks up to my window and says, "Hey, man." I was like, "Hey, can I help you?" He goes, "Yeah, I just had to come over here and tell you. Uh, I thought about robbing you,
Oh,
and I was actually so close to just pulling you out of the truck and robbing you for your money. But I thought I'd ask if you had a couple of bucks." And I was
That's
like,
unique.
I was like, nope, I don't have anything. I just gave my last 10 to my coworker. He goes, "Okay, thank you. You have a good day, sir." And I'm like, well,
I mean, at least
that just happened.
at least he was nice about it, and at least he was honest enough to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, can't get nicer than that. I wish more people could be like that.
I tell you another funny story. When I was in the drug unit, my partner and I were riding around. I mean, we literally had Cincinnati police T-shirts on, and drug unit and that. And we're stopped at a stoplight, and this guy comes up to us, and he's like, "Hey, what do you need?" And it was like our Friday night. We really didn't want to get into anything, and we looked at him, and we pointed to the T-shirts. It was like, "Hey, get lost," unless you want to go to jail. And then he looks around and he's like, "Yeah, what do you need?" And we're like, "Okay, you are too stupid to live among us tonight. You're going to jail." So we jumped out on him and grabbed him and handcuffed him. It was like, we told you to leave. We gave you an opportunity to go away, and now you're going to spend the night in jail. So it's like,
Get him to jail, and he looks at you guys and is like, "Okay, seriously, what do you guys need before
yeah,
you come?"
exactly. I mean, you laugh at how stupid people are and the things, the situations they put themselves in. But I mean, so much of it is drug and alcohol related. And I always said, if we didn't have as much alcoholism, drug abuse, and mental illness, you would not need nearly as many police officers
Yeah.
as you have today.
Working for that junk removal place, I thought we were like private investigators going into people's houses, searching on what they had and taking it and stuff like that. But yeah, that one day when we were in Durham, North Carolina, at that gas station, like I said, I'll never forget. The guy was being nice enough to tell me, "Hey, I thought about robbing you."
That's amazing. That's a great story.
You know, I and still we talk, and still we'll bring it up every now and then. It's like, dude, you remember that day we stopped at that gas station? Yeah, I've seen so many things, and I'm not even a police officer or anything like that. I've just seen so many things working in the junk removal
Yeah.
industry, man. I've seen trap houses, I've seen a bunch of things. But I did want to ask you about your book, The Sustainable Excellence. Um, is this your so I don't know much about your writing or author stuff. But is this your first book that you've written, or?
It's the first book I've had published.
Oh, okay.
When I was a police officer, I would write letters to my daughter. Our daughter was very young at the time, just in case something happened to me. I wanted her to have something. And I gave that to her. I'm like, if you want to publish this, go ahead and do it. If you want to keep it for yourself, that's fine. I wrote a very long book, about 400 pages, about my first 8 years with my cancer diagnosis. But this is the first book that I've had the opportunity to have published.
So, what motivated you to write this book?
So the book was really born out of two conversations I had. One was with a former player. And as I said, I coached girls high school basketball in Texas, who had moved to the area in Colorado where my wife and I live with her fiance. And the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. She got real quiet for a while. Then she looked at me and she said, "Well, coach, what do you think my purpose is?" I said, "I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth, using your unique gifts and talents, and living that reason." So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me from college on social media, and he said, "What do you think are the most important things that I need to learn, not to just be successful in my job or in business, but to be successful in life?" And I didn't want to give him that, get up early, work hard, help other. I didn't want to give him the sort of the cliches that we all know. And so I spent some time taking some notes and kind of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent the 10 principles to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle. Or I know somebody whose life who emulates this principle. So literally during the months I was healing after I had my leg amputated, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories underneath each of the principles. And they're real stories about real people. And that's how sustainable excellence, the 10 principles to leading your uncommon and extraordinary life came to be.
Very awesome. That's crazy.
It's such a wonderful thing. I love how you're able to take your experiences, your interactions with people, and use it. You observe your conversations, and you really listen. You're into, and you take bits and pieces of that to help somebody else. I mean, you don't get that very often with people, and that's what I love about it. Just sit here. I mean, I have never been so excited about one of our show, our episodes. I mean, I love having you on the show because it's something that will be able to reach out and touch others. It's, I mean, whether it's helping them in a big way or even in a small way, it's making the difference. I think is, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I mean, I'm sure gives you the ultimate joy is whether you're helping them in a big way or just the smallest bit of difference. It's that even the smallest bit of difference can even save a life.
Yeah,
And
you never know who you're impacting.
Right.
And I'll give you a story. This was a nurse that I'm treated every 3 weeks in the infusion center at the University of Colorado hospitals. And this was several years ago. this nurse, about 25 years old, so relatively young. She's already a nurse, but she's learning how to do things on this particular unit. About 6 months later, she's taking care of me by herself. And she comes in one day and she says, Terry, I got a story I want to tell you, but I'm a little uncomfortable telling it to you. And I didn't know how to respond to that. It's like, what do you say when somebody says that to you? And so I said to her, I said, well, it sounds like it might be a really good story and I might enjoy hearing it. I hope you decide you want to tell it to me. And she's in and out for the next couple hours, and then finally comes in and sits down. And she said, all right, here's the story. She said, when I first met you, I was going to get out of nursing. I had a very good friend of mine die. I was in a really dark place. I talked to my family. I was going to quit nursing, and I was going to go to work for Amazon. And she said, and then I met you. And I see how you come here, and I see how the drug affects you and all the side effects you have with it. And then I went back in the file and I read everything that you've been through during your cancer journey. And she said, when I finished reading it, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Now, if she would have never told me that story, I would have had no idea that just my life, the things I've been through, had had a positive impact on her. I guarantee that anybody who's listening to us, there's somebody out there that maybe you know them, maybe you don't, but they're watching how you deal with your struggles. They're watching how you deal with your adversity, and they would give anything they have just to walk 5 minutes in your shoes. So never think that your life isn't important. Never think that your life doesn't matter. It absolutely does matter, and it matters to people that you probably don't even know yet.
I believe that 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say we all have a purpose here, and
absolutely,
we can impact somebody in so many different ways. You don't know it until you do it, and you might do it. You might do it on accident, and it impacts them for the good.
I mean,
it may impact your life.
Well, you may never know. I mean, you get a simple "Hi, how you doing?" To somebody. You don't know what that person's going through, and that may be the biggest difference. May save their life, and they could have went out and really helped motivate them to do something. And it's one of those things that I mean, it's you gotta kind of sit back and think to yourself, at least I was nice to this person. I hope and I wish the best for them. And then I mean, kind of for you, it's like you're stuck wondering, or you just simply go on your way and really not even think about it. And I think that's what a lot of us, it happens to us where we may not know until 10, 20 years down the line. Oh, hey, I wonder what ever happened to that guy. I mean, I hope he's doing well or whatever. Or maybe something happens and family member reaches out and says, hey, I wanted to thank you for helping so and so out, or again, maybe you never know, and kind of like an anonymous thing. You happen to help somebody, and it's one of those. There's certain situations where we're not meant to know the answer. Maybe it's not our place. It's not for us to know until we get to where we're going after this life.
Yeah.
That's it's a really good point. And not a lot of, but enough of what we did as police officers a lot of times involves suicide, people wanting to kill themselves, or sometimes they did. And we used to always tell people, there was this sort of misperception out there that if you thought somebody might be trying to hurt themselves or kill themselves, that by reaching out and saying, hey, are you thinking about doing this, that's going to plant the seed in their mind and they're going to go ahead and execute it. And it was just the opposite. It's kind of like what you just said. If you say to that person, and we used to do this because a lot of times as negotiators, we're negotiating with people that are suicidal. It's like, hey, Andrew, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking you're killing yourself? Are you thinking of, whatever? And if the answer is no, if they're not thinking about that, they'll fire back on you like, no, you idiot, I'm not thinking about doing that. But if they are thinking about that, like you said, you just gave them an opening. You gave them, hey, somebody cares. Oh, and all of a sudden they would start spilling their guts, and all you did was ask a simple question. Hey, are you thinking of hurting? You're not going to put the idea into their mind. You're not going to cause them to do it if they're not thinking of doing it.
A
If
lot
they
of
are
people
thinking,
try for help. I mean,
yeah,
you can get Joe down the street who, it could be in a very dark spot, and I mean, he's really contemplating it, and even maybe starts making the motions where giving stuff away. He starts seeing the subtle signs, because he just he can't take it anymore. And you come in and you ask, it's just like, okay, now in Joe's mind, it's like, I somebody heard my cry. I've only
yeah.
been asking people. I've been asking, my parents. I've been asking, my siblings, this person, that person, to just listen to me, and I've been ignored. Now I got this person that wants to hear from me, and they just open that floodgate, and it saves their life, because it's like, I was able to get it all out, and this person wants to help me. They're listening to me, and now I'm able to get their feedback. They're giving me better solutions to help better my life, and they put it into motion, and that's something that, I mean, is got to be the one of the most greatest feelings you can ever have.
Well, and the reason I tell that story is because you come on scene of a suicide and you're taking the report and you're talking to people, and you hear people say things like, yeah, he said, he didn't want to live anymore. But I didn't want to, I didn't want to say, are you thinking about suicide? Because that'll put it into his mind. And you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, if you would have said that, we may not be here right now. That person may not have killed themselves because, as you said, you opened the door and you let them come out. And that's why I always tell whenever we're talking about suicide on a podcast, it's like, if you think somebody's going to hurt themselves, ask them. You're not going to plant the seed in their mind. You're not going to get them to do it. But if they are thinking about it, like you say, you're opening the floodgates and you're giving them an opportunity to get out of this situation that they obviously can't figure a way out by themselves. And just by asking, if they're not thinking about it, they're going to say, no, you idiot, I'm not thinking about it. But if they are, you're giving them a chance to live.
So, real quick before we start wrapping up here, where can one get your book if they are interested and need that motivation? Because I want to extend an invite to you. Mac doesn't know about this, but I'm going to save that for a minute there. Where can one go and get your books if they are interested in getting one?
Yeah, sustainable excellence is available anywhere you can get a book online. You can get it from Amazon, you can get it from barnesandnoble.com, Apple iBooks, wherever you get your books. If you search either my name, Terry Tucker, or sustainable excellence, it'll pop up and you can get it there.
Okay. And then the invite I would like to extend to you is, we've been talking a lot of suicide and helping and stuff like that. And Mac and I, we do another show that we just started. It's usually on Sundays, but it's investigations, and the case we're covering right now is the Benoit case, the Chris Benoit case back in 2007, the double murder suicide. We've done a lot of digging into that. It just, a lot of things seem off. If you're able to, have any time that you would be able to join us on an episode, or even multiple, we would love to be able to have you and just gather your thoughts and see what you think. Um, Given your history and your experience, I mean, I don't, but it was one of those kind of on the spot moments that came to me. It's just like, I would love to be able to have him on our investigations show, and just really dig into his mind. Um, Given what we've already experienced and what we went over, we think there's more that's being covered up. We think there's a lot more there that show that he's innocent. But I mean, if you are open, we would love to be able to have you on the show.
Sure, I'd love to come on. I'm not familiar with the case, but yeah, I can give you my 2 cents worth for what that's worth.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, And then also, you're on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So
Yep.
I mean, if you would be open to it, I would love to be able to reach out to you on Facebook, uh, maybe this weekend or something, or whenever your availability is, and we can definitely talk and things like that. And we would both love to have you, not only on that show but also back on this show as well. I feel like we could definitely go on for hours just hearing your story and have it not even be a repeat of something that we already went over. So we would
Sure.
love to be able to have you on the show again.
I would enjoy that. I appreciate it.
Well, with that being said, we appreciate you being on the show. We appreciate your words of wisdom,
Absolutely.
and can't wait to talk to you again.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you both have a great weekend. And if I don't talk to you, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
You
to
as
you
well.
too.
Thank
Thank you.
All right, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
you. Thank you.
I'm at 99%. I don't want to close it yet.